I uninvited my sister from my wedding for bringing her own food to family dinners. Then her chef boyfriend cheated and everything changed. I, 28F, had been engaged to Billy, 30M, for about a year now. We're planning our wedding for this fall, and it's been a roller coaster of emotions. My sister Catherine, 25F, has always been particular about food, but lately, it's gotten out of hand and is causing serious problems in our family. To give some background, Catherine and I grew up in a close-knit family. Our parents, Lorraine, 54F, and David, 56M, always emphasized the importance of family time, especially around meals. Mom is an incredible cook. She actually trained as a chef before deciding to become a teacher. Her passion for cooking was a huge part of our childhood. I have fond memories of helping her in the kitchen, learning family recipes passed down from our grandmother. Catherine, on the other hand, was always a picky eater. As a toddler, she would throw tantrums if her foods touched on the plate. In elementary school, she went through a phase where she would only eat white foods. Our parents tried everything, from hiding vegetables and sauces to letting Catherine help plan meals. Nothing seemed to work long-term. As we got older, Catherine's pickiness evolved. In high school, she went through various bad diets, vegan, paleo, keto, you name it, she tried it. Mom always did her best to accommodate, often making separate meals for Catherine. I remember feeling frustrated, thinking Catherine was being selfish and ungrateful. Despite the food issues, we were close as sisters. We shared clothes, gossiped about boys, and stood up for each other at school. When I went off to college, Catherine and I would have long phone calls every week, catching up on each other's lives. After college, I moved back to our hometown and got a job at a local marketing firm. That's where I met Billy. He's kind, funny, and gets along great with my family, especially my dad. They bonded over their shared love of terrible dad jokes and vintage cars. Catherine went to college out of state and stayed there after graduation, working as a graphic designer. She would come home for holidays and the occasional weekend. During these visits, we always had big family dinners. Mom would spend days planning the menu, making sure to include all our favorites. About 2 years ago, Catherine moved back home after landing a job at a trendy startup. We were all excited to have her back, especially Mom, who looked forward to having both her daughters nearby again. That's when the weekly family dinners started. Every Sunday, we'd all gather at our parents' house. Mom would cook up a storm, trying new recipes alongside old favorites. Billy and I would bring wine or dessert. Dad would grill if the weather was nice, and Catherine, well, at first, she just came with her usual list of dietary restrictions. Things were okay for a while. Then, about 6 months ago, Catherine started bringing her own food to these dinners. The first time, she claimed she was trying a new diet for health reasons. We didn't think much of it. Catherine had always been into trying new eating plans. But as the weeks went on, it became clear that this wasn't just another diet phase. Catherine was flat out refusing to eat anything Mom cooked. She'd bring elaborate meals for herself, often things that clearly took hours to prepare. One week she brought a sushi platter, another time it was a multi-course Indian feast. I could see how much this hurt Mom. Even though she tried to hide it, she'd ask Catherine questions about the food, trying to show interest, but Catherine would give short, almost condescending answers. It was like she was showing off, implying that her food was somehow better than what Mom had spent hours preparing. The tension kept building, but we all tried to ignore it for the sake of family harmony. Then came Thanksgiving. Mom had been planning the menu for weeks, incorporating everyone's favorites. She even found a recipe for a vegan pumpkin pie, thinking Catherine might appreciate it. Catherine showed up with her boyfriend Jake, 26M, and a huge cooler full of food. Throughout the meal, they barely touched anything Mom made, instead eating their own dishes. I watched Mom's face fall every time Catherine or Jake reached for something from their own stash instead of the beautifully prepared dishes on the table. After dinner, while everyone else was in a food coma watching football, I cornered Catherine in the kitchen. I asked her what was going on and why she kept bringing her own food. She got defensive, saying she just preferred her own cooking. I pushed harder and she finally snapped, saying Mom's cooking was bland and boring and that she and Jake enjoyed more sophisticated cuisine. I was furious. How could she be so disrespectful? Our mom, who would always bend over backwards to accommodate Catherine's picky eating, who had instilled in us a love for food and family, and this is how Catherine repaid her. We had a heated argument right there in the kitchen. Catherine accused me of always siding with Mom and never understanding her. I told her she was being selfish and hurtful. We probably would have kept going if Jake hadn't come in and practically dragged Catherine out of the house. The next few family dinners were tense. Catherine kept bringing her own food, Mom kept getting quieter and more withdrawn, and I kept getting angrier. Dad tried to play peacemaker, suggesting compromises like Catherine bringing a dish to share instead of a whole meal for herself, but she refused. Last week, we had a dinner specifically to discuss some wedding plans. I was excited to share ideas and get everyone's input, but as soon as Catherine walked in with her bags of gourmet takeout, I felt my blood start to boil. Throughout the dinner, while the rest of us tried to talk about flower arrangements and seating charts, Catherine made a big show of unpacking her meal. She had brought some kind of deconstructed salad that required assembly at the table. The clink of her fancy containers and the rustle of packaging kept interrupting our conversation. I watched Mom's face as she looked at the untouched casserole she had made, one of Catherine's childhood favorites. That was the last straw for me. After everyone left, I called Catherine. I told her that if she couldn't respect our family and eat the food provided, she wasn't welcome at the wedding. She freaked out, calling me a bridezilla and saying I was being ridiculous. She accused me of using the wedding to punish her for her dietary choices. I stood my ground, telling her this wasn't about the food itself, but about her blatant disrespect for Mom and the rest of the family. Catherine hung up on me. Now she's telling everyone who will listen that I'm excluding her from my wedding over food. Some of our cousins think I'm overreacting, but our aunts and uncles, who have witnessed Catherine's behavior at recent family gatherings, are on my side. Our parents are caught in the middle. Dad thinks I'm being too harsh and that we should find a compromise. Mom hasn't said much, but she quietly thanked me for standing up for her. Billy is supportive of my decision but worried about the long-term impact on the family. He comes from a small family himself and values the big, close-knit dynamic of mine, or at least what it used to be. I'm standing firm on my decision about the wedding, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't conflicted. Catherine and I have always been close despite our differences. The thought of her not being at my wedding hurts, but the thought of watching her disrespect our family on what's supposed to be the happiest day of my life hurts even more. Am I the asshole here? I feel like this goes beyond just food preferences and gets to the heart of how Catherine treats our family, especially our mom. But am I letting my anger cloud my judgment? Should I try to find a compromise or stick to my guns? Edit to clarify some points that have come up in comments. Catherine has no known food allergies or medical dietary restrictions. Mom always makes sure there are vegetarian/vegan options available, so that's not the issue. When I say Catherine brings elaborate meals, I mean things like homemade sushi, fancy pasta dishes, or multi-course meals. It's clearly not just about having a quick alternative. Yes, we've tried talking to Catherine as a family. She either gets defensive or promises to do better, but nothing changes. Update 1. It's been about a month since my original post, and the situation has only gotten more complicated. After our argument, Catherine and I didn't speak for a couple of weeks. The silence was deafening. We hadn't gone this long without talking since she went to college. Even then, we'd at least text or send each other memes on Instagram. Eventually, our mom convinced me to reach out and try to smooth things over. She reminded me of how close Catherine and I used to be, recounting stories of us as kids, how I'd stand up to bullies picking on Catherine in elementary school, or how Catherine would always let me borrow her clothes in high school, even though I usually stretched them out. Feeling nostalgic and a bit guilty, I agreed to meet Catherine for coffee at our favorite local cafe, the same place we used to hang out in high school, gossiping about crushes and planning our futures. I arrived early, nabbing our usual corner table and ordering Catherine's favorite lavender latte, hoping it would serve as a peace offering. As soon as Catherine walked in, I could tell this wasn't going to be the reconciliation I'd hoped for. Her face was set in a hard line, and she didn't even crack a smile at the sight of her favorite drink waiting for her. Before I could even open my mouth to greet her, Catherine launched into a tirade. She accused me of trying to control her and force her to eat food she didn't like. She brought up incidents from our childhood, times when I'd tease her for being picky, or when I'd get annoyed at Mom for making separate meals for her. She said I'd always taken Mom's side and never considered her feelings. I was stunned. Yes, I'd sometimes been frustrated with Catherine's pickiness growing up, but I thought we'd moved past all that. I tried to explain that this wasn't about old childhood squabbles, but about her current behavior and how it was affecting the family. That's when Catherine dropped a bombshell that shed new light on the situation. Apparently, Jake, her boyfriend, is an aspiring chef. He's been taking culinary classes at the local community college and dreams of opening his own restaurant someday. Catherine admitted that a big part of why she's been bringing her own food to family dinners is to showcase Jake's cooking skills. I was floored. All this drama, all this hurt caused to our mom, just to show off her boyfriend's cooking? I pointed out that there were much better ways to do this, like offering to cook for the family sometimes or bringing a dish to share. Catherine got defensive again, saying Jake was too good to cook in our mom's outdated kitchen. The conversation quickly spiraled from there. Catherine accused me of being jealous of her relationship with Jake and said I was threatened by his culinary talent. She even went so far as to suggest that Billy probably wished I could cook as well as Jake does. That was the final straw for me. I reminded Catherine that Billy had always loved our mom's cooking and often asked for recipes to try himself. I told her that not only was she still uninvited from the wedding, but I didn't want her in my life at all until she could learn to respect our family. Catherine stormed out of the coffee shop, merely knocking over a waitress in the process. As I sat there, staring at her untouched lavender latte, I felt a mix of anger, hurt, and overwhelming sadness. How had we gone from being best friends to this? When I got home and told Billy what happened, he was furious on my behalf. He suggested we elope to avoid all this family drama, but I don't want to let Catherine's behavior ruin our plans. We've always dreamed of a family wedding, and I don't want to give that up. The fallout from this meeting has rippled through the entire family. Our younger cousins are siding with Catherine, saying I'm being old-fashioned about food and not embracing modern culinary experiences. They've started a group chat, which I was obviously not invited to, where they share pictures of their elaborate home-cooked meals, tagging Catherine and Jake. Our aunts and uncles are mostly on my side, having witnessed Catherine's behavior at recent family gatherings. Aunt Carol, Mom's sister and a straight shooter if there ever was one, called Catherine's behavior downright disrespectful and told her as much at a recent family birthday party. Our parents are caught in the middle, trying desperately to keep the peace. Mom has stopped cooking for family gatherings altogether, saying she'd rather order takeout than deal with the stress. Dad has taken to having men's nights with Billy and Jake. I suspect in an attempt to smooth things over, but it doesn't seem to be working. I'm standing firm on my decision about the wedding, but I'm worried about the long-term impact this will have on our family. Holidays, which were once a time we all looked forward to, now loom on the horizon like dark clouds. Billy has been my rock through all of this, but I can tell he's worried too. He comes from a small, not particularly close family, and I know he was excited to be part of our big, boisterous clan. Now, he's wondering if he's walking into a minefield. I find myself lying awake at night, replaying memories of Catherine and me as kids, wondering where it all went wrong. Was I too hard on her? Did I miss signs that she was unhappy? Or is she really just this selfish? I'm at a loss for what to do next. Part of me wants to reach out to Catherine again, to try and salvage our relationship. But another part of me is still too hurt and angry. Is there any way to salvage this situation without completely giving in to Catherine's ridiculous behavior? Update 2. It's been a few weeks since my last update, and things have taken an unexpected turn. After our disastrous coffee shop meeting, Catherine seemed to back off a bit. She stopped showing up to family dinners altogether, which was both a relief and a source of tension for our parents. Then, last weekend, we had a big family barbecue for our cousin Alex's 30th birthday. It was at our aunt and uncle's place, which has a huge backyard perfect for these kinds of gatherings. Usually, these events are full of laughter, music, and the smell of grilling meat. This time, there was an undercurrent of that everyone could feel but no one wanted to address. Catherine showed up late without Jake, and for once without any of her own food. At first, I was hopeful that maybe she had finally come around. She was quieter than usual, not joining in the usual family banter. I noticed her checking her phone frequently, a worried look on her face. Just before Uncle Rob was about to start serving the food, Catherine pulled me aside and asked if we could talk privately. We ended up in the guest room, sitting on the edge of the bed like we used to do when we shared a room as kids. That's when Catherine broke down in tears. Between sobs, she confessed that she and Jake had broken up a few days ago. Apparently, she had caught him cheating on her with one of his culinary school classmates, no less. As the story poured out, I felt a mix of emotions: anger at Jake for hurting my sister, a bit of smug satisfaction that he wasn't as great as Catherine had made him out to be, but mostly overwhelming sympathy for Catherine. She admitted that the whole sophisticated food thing had been Jake's idea from the start. He had convinced her that our family's tastes were pedestrian and that by bringing his cooking to family events, they could educate us. Catherine, wanting to support his dreams and honestly, a bit dazzled by his culinary skills, had gone along with it. The kicker? Catherine confessed that she actually missed our mom's cooking. She talked about craving mom's lasagna, her eyes welling up with tears again as she described the perfectly crispy edges and gooey cheese. I was shocked and, if I'm being honest, a little smug at first, but seeing how devastated Catherine was, I couldn't stay angry. We ended up talking for over an hour, with Catherine apologizing profusely for her behavior over the past months. She told me about how insecure she'd felt coming back home after college. While I had a steady job and a great relationship, she felt like she was floundering. Jake had seemed so confident, so sure of his path, that she latched onto his dreams as a way to feel like she had direction too. As we talked, I started to see my little sister again. The girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, the teenager who cried on my shoulder after her first breakup. I realized how much I had missed her. When we finally rejoined the family, Catherine made a tearful apology to everyone, especially our mom. She asked if she could help finish preparing the side dishes, just like she used to when we were kids. The look of joy on our mom's face was indescribable. She wrapped Catherine in a big hug, and soon they were in the kitchen together, laughing as they tried to remember the secret ingredient in Grandma's potato salad recipe. The rest of the barbecue was actually really nice. Felt like we had our old Catherine back. She raved about the food, especially Uncle Rob's famous ribs, and even asked Mom for some recipes to take home. After the party, I talked to Billy about the situation. We agreed that if Catherine's behavior stays consistent, we'll reinvite her to the wedding. I'm cautiously optimistic but also wary of getting my hopes up too much. The next few family dinners were almost like old times. Catherine showed up empty-handed, eager to eat whatever Mom cooked. She even offered to help in the kitchen, something she hasn't done since high school. It was heartwarming to see her and Mom working side by side, giggling over inside jokes and swapping stories. However, I can't help but feel a lingering worry. What if this is just a phase? What if Catherine meets another guy with strong opinions about food? I want to trust her, but after months of drama, it's hard to let my guard down completely. I've also noticed that some family members are still walking on eggshells around Catherine. Aunt Carol, who's never been one to hold back, keeps giving Catherine these long or praising looks. And our cousin Alex, whose birthday barbecue sparked this turnaround, half-jokingly asked Catherine if she wanted to inspect the ingredients before he started cooking at our last family dinner. Billy thinks I should have a heart-to-heart with Catherine about the wedding. He says we need to clear the air completely before making any decisions. I know he's right, but part of me is afraid that bringing it up might shatter this fragile peace we've achieved. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. Catherine and I have started having sister nights again. Just the two of us. We watch cheesy rom-coms, eat junk food, and talk about everything and nothing. Feels good, but there's still an undercurrent of tension that we both pretend not to notice. I'm torn between wanting to forgive and forget, and feeling like I need to protect myself and our family from potential future hurt. Has anyone dealt with a similar situation? How do I balance giving Catherine another chance with maintaining healthy boundaries? Update 3. It's been a whirlwind few months since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have turned out. After Catherine's turnaround at the barbecue, her behavior remained consistently better. She came to every family dinner, always empty-handed and eager to eat whatever Mom cooked. She even offered to host a few times, nervously attempting some of Mom's recipes. Billy and I had several long discussions about the wedding situation. Eventually, we decided to have that heart-to-heart with Catherine that Billy had suggested. We invited her over for dinner one night, just the three of us. It was an emotional conversation. I explained to Catherine how hurt we all were by her previous actions. Not just Mom, but the entire family. I told her about the stress it had put on my relationship with Billy and our wedding planning. Catherine listened without interrupting, tears streaming down her face. When I finished, she apologized again, more sincerely than ever before. She talked about how lost she had felt after college, how Jake's confidence had seemed like a lifeline. She admitted that she had gotten caught up in trying to impress him and lost sight of what really mattered: family. After a lot of talking and a fair bit of crying, Billy and I decided to reinvite Catherine to the wedding. The look of joy and relief on her face made me feel like we'd made the right decision. The wedding itself was beautiful and, thankfully, drama-free. Catherine was a model guest, complimenting the food, which Mom had helped choose, and even giving a touching speech about family and forgiveness that left hardly a dry eye in the house. But the real surprise came about a month after the wedding. Catherine invited the whole family over for dinner. When we arrived, we found out she had enrolled in cooking classes, not fancy culinary school, but practical home cooking courses. She wanted to learn how to cook like Mom. The meal she prepared was simple but delicious. It wasn't perfect. The chicken was a little dry and the vegetables slightly overcooked, but you could taste the effort and love she put into it. Mom was beaming with pride the entire time. During dinner, Catherine made an announcement that took us all by surprise. She'd been doing a lot of thinking about her future and had decided to go back to school. Her plan? To become a family therapist, specializing in helping families heal rifts caused by miscommunication and misunderstandings. Looking back, I'm glad I stood my ground but also gave Catherine the chance to make things right. Our family feels stronger now than ever before. Catherine and I have even started a tradition of cooking Sunday dinners together at Mom's house. It's become a time for us to bond, laugh over our cooking mishaps, and simply enjoy being sisters again. Of course, things aren't perfect. There are still moments of tension, times when old hurts resurface. But we're all committed to working through these issues together as a family. To everyone who offered advice and support throughout this journey, thank you. Family relationships can be complicated, but they're worth fighting for. I've learned that it's possible to set boundaries and still leave room for forgiveness and growth. As for Catherine, she's thriving in her new path. She still occasionally brings a dish to family dinners, but now it's to share, not to show off. And more often than not, it's one of Mom's recipes she's trying to master. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm hopeful. If there's one thing this experience has taught me, it's that family is worth the effort, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult.